The Midnight Club is Mike Flanagan's newest show. This came out on Netflix just under 2 weeks ago, and I have been working my way through it. Normally, I binge it all right away, but I've been very busy, and I have to review it because it's Mike Flanagan, and he is the best. I talked about Hill House, Bly Manor, and Midnight Mass all last year, and I've seen almost all of his stuff. Tomorrow I'm going to rank all of his series, so those three and this one, and I was super excited. This was probably my most anticipated project of the rest of the year. And if you don't know, the Midnight Club follows a group of terminally ill young adults and older teenagers, I guess, whatever you want to say, and they stay at this place called Bright Cliff Hospice, where basically they don't get any treatment and they just get to live out their final days with each other. So they're terminally ill, they know they're gonna not live for that long, and they just don't get any treatment besides some meds. So really it's just them living out their days, but every night at midnight they meet up and they try to scare each other with some spooky ghost stories. But of course this is Mike Flanagan, so there is an extra spooky edge to it. Is the place haunted? What's really going on here? And as I said, I was so excited for the show because Hill House is my favorite miniseries of all time. Like, that is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Bly Manor I really enjoy as well. It's not as good, but it is very good. And Midnight Mass is also just fucking perfect. Like, it's just so good. And the Midnight Club may not be as good as the other ones, I'd say. I definitely enjoyed this one, but I will say it is not as good as those ones. And I think it mainly just comes down to the story. I really enjoyed it. And I'd say my favorite thing about this was easily the acting. The acting is phenomenal, and I will talk about that more in depth later. I won't spoil anything, but I would recommend going to the show just without really knowing anything, because truthfully, I didn't really know much. I just knew this was Mike Flanagan, and he adapted it from some previous stories, and I'm not familiar with those stories, but I liked the story here, but sometimes it did feel a little bit repetitive. And this is a good show. I recommend the show. I just want to make that very clear, but I do want to talk about a few problems here that I did find, and is that this is 10 episodes long. It probably could have been 9 at the very most, maybe even 8, because some episodes, what they do when they tell these stories, they use all the actors, and I really like this idea, and they actually just show it. Like, they film it like it's its own thing, and like the aspect ratio changes and everything, and sometimes it's really, really fun. Like, there's a crime noir one, there's a ton of different ones. I don't really want to discuss them, but sometimes I'd say towards more so the end of the show, when things outside of the actual Midnight Club get more interesting and they keep cutting away from it to tell us these fun stories that entertain, and a lot of the time they relate to what's going on, and I like that, but sometimes they did feel a little bit repetitive, and I was like, okay, I want to focus on what's happening with this mystery of this and that, and I'm not going to be specific, obviously, on that. So that is definitely one of the problems, and just I wasn't as intrigued right away. Like, when I finished the first episode, I was like, okay, this is good. I like this, and the whole jump scare, 21 jump scares or whatever it is in the first episode, it's fun, and it is pretty interesting. Flickstock, David from Flickstock did a great reaction to it. You should check that out. It's hilarious, but it didn't hook me like his other shows, and I know that I shouldn't be comparing it because, truth be told, this is so much better than a ton of just, not even just the horror, but just most content we get nowadays. So I'm definitely comparing it too harshly to the other ones, and if that annoys you, that's totally okay. It kind of annoys me that I automatically do that anyway, but that whole thing, it just didn't hook me, and I wasn't as like, wow, I really need to know what happens next, because obviously this did take me a little bit to watch it, but the show is very, very good, and I highly recommend you watch it. The characters, although, you know, some are definitely better than others, but when you have 8-ish, I think, characters, like main kids, and there's other characters as well, they're all really interesting. Some are definitely more interesting than others. Our main character is Alanka, and she's played by Iman Benson. I think that's how you say her name. A lot of these actors have names that I'll probably mess up, so I don't want to say them all, but she was great. She was a great lead. I found her really interesting. In the first episode, really, where I didn't know exactly what was going to happen before, you know, Bright Cliff and all that, I thought it was really interesting, and she led the show with such passion, and I really appreciate her character because she had great conflict. She had some interesting relationships with some of them, and I was like, wow, I really wonder where this is going to go. But one of my absolute, probably my favorite character from here is Spencer, and Spencer is played by William Chris Sumter, I think that's how you say his name, and basically I think that he's my favorite because he provided the best conflict with one other person specifically, which I don't know, okay, I won't say who it is, but the conflict is that he is gay in here and he has AIDS. He's dying from AIDS and stuff like that. And one of the other people here is super religious, and Spencer, actually, okay, I'm not going to say the reason that there is conflict, but I'll just say there's some conflict there. I won't say why. And I think the way that was handled as well was so good. There's other characters that he interacts with for other reasons, and this is just me kind of ducking around spoilers. I might talk about it on some live stream or some Patreon post or something like that, but he was my favorite character, not only because he was funny and his attitude was just always great, but he had so many emotional moments. There was one part where I almost cried. It was towards the end of the show. I won't say what it is, but it really got to me. The character, there's just so much about him. I thought he was played really well, but the standout is the character of Anya, played by this brand new actor, Ruth Cod, something like that, C-O-D, or Cod, Ruth Cod, I think, C-O-D-D, and I think this is her first thing ever. And when she was first introduced, I was like, oh, am I gonna like hate this character? Because she's very rude. She's Irish, I think, and she's very rude. She's very cocky and sarcastic, and I was like, okay, this could either work really well or get very annoying. And yeah, I mean, as it progresses, she's really probably the most important character in the show, and probably the best written one, I would say, and one of the best ones as well. The actor probably gave the best performance here. So much humor, like the biggest laughs come from her, but also the saddest scenes are also from her. So that really shows the range. I know she's in the next Mike Flanagan show, The Fall of Usher House or something like that. So I'm really interested to see her here, but she's somebody who is wheelchair bound because she lost her leg, and there was just more complications with all of them. Obviously, they're all terminal, and she was just like, every time she was on screen, you knew something good was going to happen, but there were also some pretty horrifying scenes, and that's something I haven't talked about yet, just because I really feel the need to talk about all these actors. I will say, like, I really enjoyed them all. I liked all of them. I could go and list all their names, but I think I'm just going to put them on screen because I think they're all great. The last person is just Kevin, played by Igby Rigney, I think that's how you say his name. And the reason I mentioned him, not only is he great, and I was very sussed out about his character, I was like, what's he gonna do? But he reminded me of JD from Heathers right from the opening. But actually, I'm gonna read out all the other actors' names because I know I'm gonna mess them up, but I feel like they have to be said because they're all great. The best part of the show is the acting. Anara Simone, Adia, just one name, Aya Furukawa, I'm probably saying that one wrong, I'm sorry, Sarayan Sapkota, I'm very sorry. So those are the main characters. Iman, Igby, Ruth, Nara, William, Adia, Aya, Sarian or something like that. But then there's also some familiar faces like Samantha Sloan. So it was all really fun to see here. And of course, one of my favorite things about the show is that Heather Langenkamp, or whatever her name is, Nancy from A Nightmare on Elm Street, is in this, and she's another one of the more prominent characters in the show. But anyway, I'm going to stop talking about the acting. I thought it was fantastic, and I really felt like in this review I could not feel satisfied if I didn't rant about how good the acting was for like 6 minutes or however long that was. Sorry, let's talk about the horror elements because this is Mike Flanagan. Yeah, this thing is scary. And it's not as scary, and the scares aren't as important as the other ones, but there was one moment in probably sometime episode 5, 6, 7, somewhere in that range. It's when a character appears in a bed. Oh my, geez, I that one scared me the most. And yes, there's a ton in the first episode, and you kind of get used to it after a while. Like, you can expect when it's going to come. I don't mean that as an insult as well. The horror was really done well here. I thought that it was nicely kind of pushed away when we had to focus on the emotions, because having young people being terminally ill, there was some pretty sad and messed up stuff that happens, and they really deal with the topics well, and their whole conflict with each other, but also the way they connect and the way that some of them are jealous of other ones, like just all stuff like that. It's all stuff that could go into spoiler territory. I thought the directing was very good. A lot of the episodes had different directors, and sometimes you could feel like some you could tell were more experienced than the others, but nothing was bad. All the writing was phenomenal as well. I just wasn't as invested with this story as much as I would have liked to been, because sometimes it does veer off track a little bit, or we just kind of get the safety of the stories. As fun as they are and as much as I enjoy them, like I never really felt like there was a dull moment here. There were just some times where I was like, okay, I really want to know what's happening with this and with this, and that's stuff I can't mention because it does go into spoiler territory, but you should definitely check out The Midnight Club on Netflix. It may not be the strongest Flanagan project, but I mean, he has some of the best ever, so I don't blame him. The Midnight Club has all the thrills I've come to expect from Flanagan, but what surprised me was the amount of emotion throughout. Most of the characters are well fleshed out, but there are lots of unanswered questions by the end of the show. I love the conflict that this one tackled, and the scares here hit hard. I'm going to give The Midnight Club a 3.5 out of 5. Yes, I know this review is longer, and that's just because with his shows, I always feel like there's so much to talk about, and there's so much more. I could probably talk about the show for 2 hours, but nobody will watch that, and I don't exactly want to edit that, to be completely honest. But The Midnight Club is a very good show. Yes, as I said, there was some stuff by the end of the show where I was like, okay, it seemed like they almost forgot about that, and I don't think they're setting up for a second season. There hasn't been for any of the other shows. It feels like a miniseries. Actually, if I look at IMDb, what does it say? It says TV series, so I can't really tell, but I highly doubt there will be a second season. But I did really enjoy this. I think the emotions really hit hard, and if you can connect with some of these characters, there will be times, if you've had similar illnesses to some of them, where some of the stuff really hits hard. I really enjoyed this. It's not my favorite Flanagan thing, but again, I do feel bad comparing it tomorrow, or maybe today, depending on when this video gets posted. I will rank all of his series, but let me know what you thought of The Midnight Club down below, and thank you all for watching. I will see you guys next time. Over and out.